Pam and I do that on our anniversary. We evaluate our sex life. And every year we have the conversation. Okay, so what do you like that we're doing? What do you not like that we're doing? Is there anything you want to add to our sexual interaction? What kind of sex life do we want to have in the next season of our life? And when you have that conversation that's positive, it's not just how do we avoid the bad, but how do we develop a sex life between the two of us that's satisfying to both of us, where we're being honest.
Well, welcome to the Huddle, where the guys of A Better Us get our heads together and we try to make a plan for moving the ball down the field. And so I'll tell you where we are in a second, but we've got Eric Maines, we've got Dan McCauley, we've got Mike Pinball Clemens, and joining us also is Bill Farrell, relationship expert, author of like some 45 books or something. And so it's great to be together in this huddle. And we're letting the women in on what happens in a huddle when guys get together. So, but we're talking about some important things because we want to all become a better us. Yes, by the way, we are at Tim Hortons Field in Hamilton, home of the Hamilton Tiger Cats, and also home of the Canadian Football Hall of Fame, in which pinball is an inductee. And
but we're trying to become a part of the Husbands Hall of Fame today, though, right? Yes.
Right. Well, so this is a special place to be. Like, we look around the room and there's memorabilia of football all over the walls from many years going back, and so it kind of helps us guys get a little shot of testosterone and everything here. But we've been dealing in these huddle segments, and we're sprinkling them in, throughout episodes of A Better Us, in different topics that we just need to talk about as guys. Yeah. And one of them that's been called every man's battle is this whole pornography issue. And so, Bill, you're going to help us get things kicked off here to understand why men struggle with this so much, and maybe does it have an effect, if any, on our marriages?
Yeah, it's one of those things we have to get comfortable talking about because it's so prevalent in our world today, and it's when we were younger, you had to go looking for pornography. Right. Now all you have to have is a device, and it'll find you, and so we have to be talking about this issue. And I believe pornography, the primary reason why it's an issue for men is because of the power God put in us. Like when God created us as males, he made us as passionate individuals. That's the whole purpose for putting lots of testosterone in our body, is he wants us to be passionate about him, passionate about our wives, passionate about our career, passionate about raising our families, and passionate about making a difference in the world. And all of that passion, if it gets refocused, it can create damage very quickly. Like the picture I like to keep in my mind is I had the opportunity to go over to Germany, and the family we stayed with had a Mini Cooper sitting in the driveway. So at dinner, I looked at the dad and I said, "Hey, you got a Mini Cooper, and the Autobahn is like when are we going out?" And his 18-year-old son said, "I'll take you out." Now I'm thinking, was this wise? And as we're leaving the door, Dad says to his son, "Hey, son, no going over 200 kilometers." Something I never said to my kids. Yeah. So we got on the Autobahn. We're traveling 200 kilometers an hour, and we were passed by two Porsches. And as they went blowing by, I went, "Man, I want to be in that car." But then we passed one of the Porsches a little bit later, but it didn't look like a Porsche anymore. It was this flaming heap of metal because the driver lost respect for the power of the vehicle. And see, that's where I think pornography gets us, is God made us passionate, and if we don't respect the power, then we're vulnerable to getting distracted. Wow. And because we're visually stimulated, pornography can have a strong impact on us. First of all, it's a quick stress relief. And those of us that get stressed in our life and want to just get away, too many people find that as an easy escape. Second, it's powerfully chemically. Like it will produce chemicals in our brain to cause them to be released that capture our attention quickly. And there's two primary chemicals. One is called PEA, that when something is new and it involves our passions, PEA gets released, and it's a narcotic. And it causes you to only see what it is that stimulated you. So early in a marriage, when you say, "I do" to your wife, PEA gets released, and you're like, "Look at her, it's amazing." And it lasts about 18 to 24 months, and then it wears off. But there's another chemical called oxytocin that can get it can get stimulated over and over and over again, and it bonds two people together in an exclusive relationship. So we can use that for us in our marriages, or pornography has learned how to use it against us. Because when a pornography thing is new, it'll spark PEA, and if it's habitual, it will spark oxytocin. And then there's also the release of dopamine that happens along the way, and it becomes a very pleasurable thing. So it can move into an addiction. It doesn't always start as an addiction, but it can move that way if we're not careful. So our challenge as men is, how do we live in a world where pornography is everywhere, but respect the power of the passions in our life to keep those passions focused in a way that build our life rather than destroy it?
And that addiction can have that destructive nature in our marriages.
Yeah.
Because another byproduct of the oxytocin is that, it'll bond two people together. That's the way God created us, and that's the way He wired our minds to respond that way, and you bond closer to the one you're having the sexual experience with. But if it's with an image or a video or something, then you're bonding with that, and the converse effect is that it kind of has you push away from others not part of that. And so you can actually be pushing your spouse away, just with what happens in your brain when you're viewing it.
Yeah, because there's a popular notion that pornography can help your marriage by adding spice to it.
Yeah.
It doesn't actually do that. It actually creates a comparison between what has been rehearsed and edited and made to look perfect with the woman you're actually with.
Yeah.
And our women feel that comparison. That's why they get so threatened by it. Like you and I, guys, we know we can compartmentalize that part of our life, but for her, it becomes this: do you think she's or those things are prettier than me? Are they more attractive than me? Are they more exciting than me? Right. And once she feels compared, the insecurity level just rises to an unbelievable level.
And that grates against her primary need of would you choose me, and the security and all that we've talked about before. Yeah.
Well, I think it's fitting in being in the Hall of Fame, because when I think of pornography, I think, run! Because I was never a guy who looked at the magazines, right? But when it came to my house, like it came in the spam thing, right? It was the era where you couldn't avoid it, and it was there, right? But then, so it came up, and boom, right away you get, and then you look a little bit longer. And then you look at it a little longer, and then I was like, "What am I doing?" Right? And then it's like, "Run!" So for me, the advice, right, is run. Just run. Just
run away.
Yeah, flee from sin, right? Just run.
We're just in front of a football field here, and it's when you think of the field, you play the game, and there's rules, there's boundaries, and you're supposed to play within the field, and God has given us a great field for sexual expression within marriage. Right. And and as we stay, within those guidelines, there's reasons why there's boundaries, and that we learn from the Bible. And but you get outside of those boundaries, you're out of bounds, and you're not going to gain any ground. You're going to go, you're going to lose the game. And so we got to realize, how do we keep in there? When I think back for myself, and the statistics will show that 9 out of 10 boys will be exposed before they're 18, and the average age of exposure to pornography is 12 years old. And in my case, I was with a friend in a school buddy of mine. I was over at his house, and we were maybe 11, 12 years old, and his parents were gone, and he said, "I'll be right back." He goes upstairs, and he goes into his dad's nightstand. He had these magazines, and so he brings it down.
Doing you a favor.
Yeah, he said, "Hey, look at this, Ron." And then that was all of a sudden, I'm exposed to this, and I got something that awakens, in you, and you think, "Oh my goodness," and so that kind of started something where it became a battle. I gotta fight against this thing, because it's this battle of the mind, and that. If you keep giving into it, it's a challenge, and then you think, well, I'll get married and everything will be okay, and then that'll go away, and that's a myth, right? Because if you have that kind of struggle, it's going to still be there, into marriage, and then it starts having that negative effect on your marriage. Yeah. And so you got to say, oh God, how can I stay within the boundary lines you've set, and what do I need to do in order to stay there and to win the battle? And so that's been something that I've had to learn through the years.
Right, it's something that you would even become ashamed of, and then you would hide that from your wife, and this is now a secret you're keeping, and you have your open relationship with your wife, and then this on the side. But I think there's two relationships that we can actually be completely open and completely honest with, and that's us and God, and us and our wife. God gave us someone that we can actually be completely open with, and they can help us with our stuff. We can help them with their stuff, and that's an accountability partner.
No secrets.
No secrets. And yes, pornography would drive a wedge in that, because it is something you would feel a little. I'm ashamed that I'm doing this because I've saved sex for my wife, but now visually and mentally by myself, and I'm not telling her about this. I feel like we need to be open and share and even confess with our wives and with God.
And I so appreciate you sharing it, Eric, because I think one of the big keys to this is we need to have courageous conversations with our wives.
Yeah.
And you mentioned every anniversary you do an evaluation of your marriage.
Yes.
Pam and I do that on our anniversary. We evaluate our sex life. And every year we have the conversation. Okay, so what do you like that we're doing? What do you not like that we're doing? Is there anything you want to add to our sexual interaction? What kind of sex life do we want to have in the next season of our life? And when you have that conversation that's positive, it's not just how do we avoid the bad, but how do we develop a sex life between the two of us that's satisfying to both of us, where we're being honest. Because us guys know we would like a different rhythm. Like the frequency that we would like to see in our sex life, and the frequency our wives would like to see, that there's a different number that comes up. And we need to be talking about that regularly, because they forget. They assume that sex for us is like it is for them, just like we assume that also. So having those conversations is very brave, and it's important. And I want to make sure before we get out of the segment that we say to everybody, if pornography has become at the level of an addiction for you, you can be set free, but you're going to have to get courageous and take steps to get there. You're going to have to get into a group that's going to help you work through it, or you're going to have to get a counselor that's going to walk you through therapy. So freedom is possible, but if it's reached the level of addiction, please don't be ashamed, please don't keep it a secret, and please seek help.
And don't try to do it on your own strength.
Right,
because and the good thing is that we have God on our side. When those of us who've committed our lives to Him, that the Bible talks about this being crucified with Christ. One of my dad's favorite scriptures was this Galatians 2:20. I'm crucified with Christ. Nevertheless, I live, but it's not me, it's Christ living in me.
That's right.
And the life I now live in the flesh, I live by faith in the Son of God who loved me and gave Himself for me. That scripture was one that he kind of he would repeat to himself often. And he was a man of integrity. He's the one that I look up to. And one of the things that's been helping me lately is I'm wearing his ring, his wedding ring.
Good.
He wore for 59 years. And when I think of Dad's life and his ring and his life of integrity and my mom, and it just helps to keep me on track. But getting that accountability with someone else. There's some great software out there available.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
some websites like covenanteyes.com. We'll have it come up on the screen. And xxchurch.com. There's some great resources out there for guys if this is a struggle for you. I encourage you to do that. And you can win the battle. With God's help, not on your own strength, He will help you. And so this has been a good huddle, guys. Thanks so much for you being open and honest here and just sharing from your heart. Okay, don't go away.